Hello people of the world, and welcome to today's episode of Coffee Chats with Jax. Today's video is another video in our series of Be Free, which for those of you who don't know, Be Free is the book that I published last year, which is my story overcoming shame, depression, stepping into a life of freedom and grace. And the chapter that we are on today is called Relationship. Relationships, I believe, are one of the most important things in the whole entire world. I think that we were all created for relationships. We were all created to be in families, in communities, in friendships, in marriages. I think that without those things, we are not complete. We are not whole. We need people in our lives. But the problem with that is we are all broken people. And when you put two broken people together, odds are there's going to be conflict and there's going to be tension. Because of the fact that we are broken, I want to talk about how important it is to look inward at ourselves. Self-reflection is a bumpy road, looking at our stories and the places we might not be as put together as we want the world to think. I've messed up so many times in my life, and through that I have hurt people. But what I started to do a few years ago is I started to go in this self-reflection process to look at why I am the way that I am, to look at where my faults are and where I've hurt people. It's like a really scary, sobering thought to realize how you have the capability to really damage someone else's life. I don't know if anyone out there genuinely wants that, but what we have to do is look at the truth of the fact that we can. You have to realize that you have the capability of hurting somebody, whether you want to or not, whether your intentions are good or not. It's bound to happen because we are broken. We are just as capable of hurting someone as we are capable of being hurt ourselves. We walk in relationships with fear of people hurting us, but what about us hurting them? It's kind of like just being able to look at our own brokenness before we go judge someone else's brokenness. Instead of judging other people, let's look inward at ourselves and what we could be doing better. Maybe the broken relationships in our lives, maybe we're not a complete victim to everything like we thought we were. Maybe instead of focusing on how we feel, we need to focus on how others are feeling. And if there's something we've done wrong to affect somebody else, let's look at that, because people matter. It doesn't matter how different they are than you. It doesn't matter if they're living a life you agree with or not. People matter. There is a deep intrinsic worth on somebody's life, so much that it was worth dying for. Just like your brokenness was worth dying for, theirs was too. It's uncomfortable to look at where we may have hurt other people. It's uncomfortable sometimes to take the focus off of ourselves and our own hurt and to put it on someone else's. It's called empathy. For a year and a half of my life, I was making decisions and choices that was really severely hurting another human being. And I was covering those choices up because I was ashamed. But at the end of that year and a half road, when I started to look inward at myself and to start to realize that this world is not just about me and about my pleasure, and to realize that there's choices that I have made and things that I've said and done that hurt another person that I really cared about really badly. There came a moment where I had to own it, where I had to look at myself and look at the choices that I made and not make excuses for them. There are reasons why we do what we do, but there's a time and a place to talk about that. And at this point in time, my mission was to care about this other person that I had hurt. Because when we hurt people, I believe it's our responsibility to own it and to apologize and to try and make it better. What happens after that, that's not in our control, but we have to own where we're wrong. And when I realized that and I started to pick up the pieces of where I screwed up, and I brought these pieces to this person that I'd hurt, and I said, listen, here's where I messed up. I am sorry. And I didn't make excuses, and I didn't talk about how I felt. I shared what I did wrong, and I asked, how can I make this better? How can I love you better? What do you need? Because sometimes it's not about me. When we apologize and we start to own up to our stuff, that's how you can have meaningful, real relationships. That's how you can have ones that actually talk about stuff that matters without just putting a smile on, pretending everything's fine. We talk about what's hard. I talk about my brokenness with you, where I might have hurt you, and I care about you. Just like I want you to talk about your brokenness if you hurt me, it's just as much my responsibility. Because when we hurt people that really matter, whatever excuses or whatnot we come up with in our head, nothing else should matter except for how can I make this right? What should matter is compassion, empathy. Even if you don't understand, you have to try. Even if everything about this other person you completely disagree with, if you've hurt them, it is your responsibility to look in the mirror at yourself. That's the only way you can go into relationships in a healthy way. We're never going to be perfect. Never. I'm sorry if that's news to any of you, but there's no perfect relationship out there because there's no perfect people. But what there can be is a lot of imperfect people looking at themselves, seeing how they can make themselves better, caring enough about the other person to start doing the work on their own to make themselves better. We can't control what another person says or does or thinks. All we can do is control what we do, we say, and we think. And the most important thing in the world is love, compassion, empathy, grace. You need it just as much as me. I need it just as much as the most broken, messed up human being in the world. And once we're able to see that, once we're able to get off of our high horses, once we're able to stop judging people who we think are wrong because somehow we know everything, that's when empathy can start to be at play. Stop pointing your finger and start looking at yourself. If you would like to purchase this book and the discussion questions that go along with it, along with this video series, then there's a link in the description box below where you can purchase my book, Be Free. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I will see you guys next time.